Hey there YouTube, AJ here in the garage today with the hot rod project. Got all my parts all spewed about around me here, and the goal for this weekend is to get this axle pretty much assembled with the spring pack on it and get the frame mounted on top of it. I won't have the wheels on it yet because I'm also simultaneously working on another project where I'm converting the hubs and the brake drum to separate them and make it a slip over design to where you'll be able to take the brake drum off and work on the brakes without having to pull the hub. So that'll be a nice upgrade. So got to do that yet. I'm working on that. I'm also rebuilding the brakes at the same time. So got all that going on in a separate thing. But for now, let's get working on this. So the first thing we got going on here is this backing plate is just kind of sitting here loose on the axle tube. It's not attached yet, so we got to bolt that on. So one of the things I've got going on with the way I'm building this is I'm using these spring perches that I made using an old Model A axle, and I have a thicker flange here that I have to go through as well. So my original bolts won't work. I need to use longer ones, so I have to upgrade there. I'm also going to be using, I'm trying to remember what year these are off of, but they're a later Ford passenger car shock mount that will bolt on here as well. So I need longer bolts for that. Additionally, we got my rear radius rods I'm using, which is off of a 37-ish Ford. I can't remember now. Anyway, so I got that thickness of that to go through as well. So all that said, I'm going to start putting the bolts on here. And the longer bolts will need to go through this as well, so these are going to have to be the back ones. And the grease goes rounded in, goes down. So we're going to put these in like that. Two shorter ones for the front. Alright. I'm just going to get these started for now because we got other issues to deal with as well. Because of the way the heads are, I have to put them into this first. If I try to put the cup against here and run them in, the heads won't fit past the edges of the flange, and I don't want to beat it up any more than it is. Alright, we don't want to put these on too far yet because I got to get, especially the bottom ones, because I got to get this in there. One of the things I need to do though, before that, let me grab a rag. So one of the things I need to address before I go too much further is this will be going on here, this will be going on the bottom side. These two flanges are not the same thickness. Let me get a measuring stick. The radius rod will be going onto the bottom two bolts, and my spring hanger will be going onto the top two bolts. And don't worry, I'm going to weld these later on as well. they're going to be bolted and welded. But anyway, so we have to worry about the thickness of this flange and this flange. And if you look at the sides of the shock mount, you see that these aren't made the same length. That's because on the car this originally came from, there was lower radius arms that this would have mounted to. But on the top there was not that, so this one was longer to compensate for that lack of that space that the radius arm took up. On mine, I will be using this up here, so there will be some space, but unfortunately they're not the exact same thickness. So I have to cut enough off the top part of these mounts to where they will sit evenly, both against here and the radius arm. This one is a 1/2 inch, so that's a 1/2 inch thick on top. Okay, and then the radius rod is 5/8. So there's an 1/8 of an inch difference between the mounting point on the radius rods and the mounting point on the spring perch. That means I need to cut this top boss to where it is 1/8 of an inch longer than the bottom one. Let's see if we can't throw some parts together here first. All right, so we got all those in there. Now, this will be going on over here. And we just got a problem. All right, so what we're looking at here, this axle tube tapers. It's skinnier up here than it is up here. So it continuously gets wider. With these longer bolts all the way out, this won't go in far enough. It's just a hair cocked. It won't go in far enough to clear. So I'm going to have to put this up against and get my bolts through as I go with this already in position, which is going to make it a little more difficult. So what I got to do is go ahead and trim this down, mark it and trim it to where these two will sit flush together when it's done, and then I'll have to push these bolts back in, and then after that's all said and done, push them back through all three pieces at the same time, which should be fun. With that figured out, next step we're going to do is go ahead and cut this down. So I got my top bung on my shock mounts cut down to where it's only 1/8 of an inch longer than the bottom one. So these should sit right now. You might notice that these are not the same length. This one's longer. The car they came off of, this was the way they were. One shock was actually longer than the other. What I am going to do, because I don't like the idea of having it be asymmetrical on the back, I will eventually be cutting about 3/4 inch out of this, welding it back together so it'll be symmetrical from the rear view. Anyway, that's a future problem. For right now, we're just going to go ahead and get it mounted and mocked up so we can start getting this frame together. So we got to push these back in, which sucks. Okay, let's see if we can get these through again. The weight of the, there we go. The weight of the radius arm binds up everything. So you gotta lift that weight up in order to get these to slide through. Got one tight one here. Looks like the back bolts are just going to be perfectly the right length. These are a smidge long, but that'll work. It's better to be a smidge long than a smidge short. And I don't know if I'm going to use this style of nuts. I have the original nuts. I might use those instead. But for now, we'll use these. Alright, in the future, when I go to tighten these down for real, instead of just snugging them like I'm going to do now, I'll have to get in here with something to hold the heads. That's a problem I got to figure out. So you see the radius arm sticking out. Get it all mounted up there. You can see where the shock mount is mounted into this evenly. Looks good, all this. So I guess now we just got to do the other side. Okay, so the second side went together pretty quick, pretty easy. Not too much difficulty. Of course, I'd worked out the method on the other side. Other than if I'd been recording while I was setting up, you would have got to see my comedy of errors where I stepped in a pan of brake fluid that I had drained and flipped that over, poured it down into my sock and shoe. Then I slipped and fell, and I caught myself on my workbench, knocked a tape measure off the workbench, went flying across, hit, broke that flew apart. It was just a fun little thing. Been great to have on camera, but I didn't. Okay, our next step, we're gonna take and get my spring mounted, hopefully. I don't know, we'll see. Just the main leaf for now. So my spring is going to mount with shackles between this perch and this eye. And you can see the gap is longer, so I have to stretch the spring some. But let's start by putting a shackle in it. All right, so we got some grease here to grease up our shackle. All right, so we got a shackle in there, and in there. Let's throw a plate on here. Keep that one together. It's got a long way to go. So what we need to do is figure out a way to block this in place. That's not bad. Ideally, it would be completely flat to maximize our length. But I think we can live with that. Now, we need to squish this down, do the same thing on that side, and then squish this down. All right, so we got another chunk of wood here. We're going to switch this one with a smaller 2x4 here. Look at that, nice and level, perfect. And then use the bigger one over here because that'll give me more space to slide around and maneuver on. All right, that said, we're going to try to take this ratchet strap, take the ratchet strap around the axle, hook it to itself. Let's see. Come on. Not quite. Can almost get it with just my weight, but we're gonna have to ratchet this down. There we go. Woo! All right, put that plate on there. Okay, so the battery died on my GoPro when I was removing the straps and the boards and tightening the nuts down, but you know, it's all good. The good thing is, with the stress off of it, the spring is sitting with the shackles level, which is what I was hoping for at this point, because with the weight of the car and everything on, you want these shackles to be down at a 45-degree angle so you can maximize the travel on them. So hopefully it's all going to be just as I want. And I got movement here, so that's good. So the next thing is to start putting together some springs. And we need a bolt for that. I've got this entire spring pack here that I've pre-built, and I've used a slip plate to coat my springs in, which is a dry graphite lubricant that will help my springs slide on one another. I got it all prepared and ready to go. We're gonna need some clamps. Ideally, we would do this all in one shot. I don't know if I have clamps that'll work for that. I don't have any big enough clamps. Now what? Alright. Those aren't long enough. Might need to use the strap trick again, which sucks. Now what? What am I going to do? Alright, what we got here is another crazy ratchet strap scenario. I got two ratchet straps up here. I know I'm not going to be able to use these ratchet straps to pull it tight enough to get it all tightened down together, but I'm hoping I can get it tight enough to get the nut on the bottom of the spring bolt. I mean, the smart thing would be to go out and buy a piece of 3/8 all thread so I could cut it long enough to go through this whole thing relaxed, and then tighten it down, clamp it, and then switch the center bolt. But, you know, I don't feel like doing that. I want to try to get it done. So, let's see what we can do with these. It'll provide some margin of fly apart safety. All right, now back to this. Here we go. Have an idea. Aha! I think this one might be a successful idea too. So what we're gonna do is come up as high as we can on here. Repeat that on this side. I don't recommend doing it this way. This is not fun. This is kind of crazy. And if you feel the need to tell me how stupid I am in the comments, please go ahead. I already know that. But, you know, sometimes it makes people feel better to get that out in the open. So close. If I could get this lined up, I think I have enough length to get through and get a nut on it. New idea. All right. Small victory, but it's a victory. I do have the center bolt through this spring. Now, I need to get it a little more so I can get a nut on there. Man, this has been a workout. Hopefully. Oh. All right, we just greatly reduced the danger factor because I got a couple threads on that. Almost got the full nut threaded, or the full thickness of the nut threaded. Oh. And we just broke this ratchet strap. It has no more ratchety. Great. Alright, so we got a couple options here, none of which I like. Let's see what we can do. Alright, I don't really want to use this bolt to tighten it down. I might be getting to that is my only option. We'll see. For now, I just want to get a couple turns on it to take just enough to take the tension off of my ratchet straps. There goes one clamp. Okay, we are relatively together here. I don't know if it's bad to use this bolt to tighten it together or not. That might be what I'm stuck with doing at this point. But we are much, much closer. I guess I could go ahead and do it, and if in the long run it turns out to be a no-no, I could replace it later. Replacing it would be easier because I clamp it first, take the bolt out, put a new one in. We could do that. I forget how much these bolts were. Not cheap, but not super expensive. You know what I think I'll do? I know what I'll do. I will tighten it down on the bolt until I can get the clamps on it, and then I'll put the clamps on it and draw it down and tighten it that way. That's the plan. Of course, the battery died again, my last battery with the charge, but I did go ahead and finish getting the spring mounted. The last method that I was using, where I tightened the spring pack using the center bolt enough to get my C-clamps around it, and then I started tightening the C-clamps down, and then would spin the bolt, this bolt up and tighten a little more and more and more. And anyway, kept doing that until I got it all tight. So we're good to go now. It is solid right now. I can't move it at all. What that means, I don't know yet. Hopefully when I get some weight from the car on here, these shackles will start going down, because they should be at a 45, not straight out like this. So we'll see when we get there. Next step is I'm ready to put my frame onto this. And I don't know if you noticed, but I have a very small single car garage with all my tools and stuff around me. I don't have a lot of room, and I've kind of worked myself into a situation here. My frame with the Z'd up rear cross member is underneath my axle, and it's not like I just can't pick this up and move it and carry it by myself. So I've got to come up with a plan here to where I can get this up high enough that my rear cross member in this frame will slide out from underneath it, and then we can put it back on top of it.
Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but personally I think the only thing that looks better under an old Ford hot rod than a Ford Banjo is a Halibran quick change. And let's face it, a Halibran quick change is not in my budget, so I am pretty darn happy with this. If you look, my shackles are still pretty much straight out flat. Hopefully weight of the car will bring those down some. They seem to move a little bit under my 160 pounds when I get up on there and bounce. I've got my shock mounts in there. Those are nice. I got to shorten the one on the right side. We'll get there eventually. We're not going to do that right now. Got the one on the left. I haven't decided which way I want my grease fittings to face, either to the front or the rear. I'm not sure yet. I've got one each way right now. I'll have to change that later. We'll get there. I've already got a plan in mind for how I'm going to do that, so I don't think it'll be too difficult. So famous last words. Anyway, yeah, so far I'm liking the look of this, and got my spring nestled nicely into the cross member pocket. Looking at it from the front side, my U-bolts are not tight yet, they're just snugged down. I do have a little bit of space here on the front. Right now it's about a 1/4 inch, on the back it's like 1/8. They're not tightened evenly, so I'll have to tighten those down and fix it. I did use a taller spacer. I'm not sure if having this gap in here is an issue, or if I need to put a spacer in to take up that space. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. If you know, please leave it in the comments below. Tell me if I need to do something about this. Maybe I'll weld in a little plate here just for strength. I don't know. Tell me, let me know what you think. Okay, we've got the rear end mostly together. We got it mounted into the frame. The tires are just sitting over top of the end of the axles right now for looks. I got to put together the brakes next. So next up is convert my rear drums and hub setup to a slip over design, to where the brake drum can be taken off separately from the hub, and actually getting my brakes reassembled on there. So that'll be their next 2 videos. The brakes are going to be one by itself, rebuilding the early Ford brakes, and then another video on converting the combined hub drum assembly into the slip over design. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Starting to make some progress, feeling better. So yeah, till next time, YouTube. Later.